Assalamu alaikum and hello and welcome to 2022. This is your host, SABIA KHATUN. Let's talk about it with SABIA on VodTalk. Today, all I want to say is it's a great pleasure to come back and bring you more videos on demand. It's VodTalk, and it's a great platform. It's a significant platform where we not only share your views, your thoughts, but your experiences, and we want to create that bigger, greater awareness. I have with me today two wonderful guests who we will be talking about various things, but one concern that I have is, what do we see when we look around us? What is happening, not only the local community, nationally, but also globally? But it would be interesting to find out today about how neighbours who challenge antisocial behaviour and lead change, not only here, but in the locality. If I can take you over to our guests, I have with me Darren Way, who is a founder for Streets of Growth. Welcome to the show, Darren.
Thank you for having me.
I also have with me here Diane Peters, who is the CEO of Streets of Growth, and they will be sharing with us today not only what's happening, but some really, really valuable and sensitive related aspects and the impacts that are that can happen and have. What I would like to ask Darren, first of all, is if you can give us an insight into what it is that you do and what can you actually bring to us on VodTalk today.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, I'm a local neighbour. I grew up in Tower Hamlets, born in Mile End, and in 1967, and my family go back into the 19th century here. So I have a strong heritage of ancestors growing up in the locality, and worked in the neighbourhood myself. Went to school here, and have a big community here. Some have moved on, but I noticed around sort of the late 70s, early 80s, you could see the ethnic changes. Certainly, the Bangladeshi communities moving in, and as residents already there, which were predominantly white back then, and we had families from what they would then call the West Indies, the Caribbean, who was doing the integration. So there was a lot of communities. It looked very multicultural, but it wasn't very multi-integrated.
Right.
So growing up in that environment, around 1995, I got involved in community work and started to encourage young boys back then, aged between sort of 8 and 16, white, black, Bangladeshi, etc., to try and play football. And I could see that some of the communities were uncomfortable with some of that, like why are they playing with them, and certain boys in the Bangladeshi communities going, you shouldn't mix with those white guys, and white guys fearful. So I could see a bit of racial tension, and I could see how it could easily start getting involved in gangs and stuff. So I started to really explore how, as a neighbour, I could start to challenge difference and antisocial behaviour that was going on in the neighbourhood.
Okay. And talking about the challenges and the risks that we will hopefully address, and highlight, but also about how we can inspire change and bring about different kinds of support. Maybe Diane, you can tell us a little bit about some of the challenges and how can we address some of the risks that are out there.
Risks in terms of what young people are facing in the local community. I think in our borough in Tower Hamlets, risks that young people are facing have increased dramatically, particularly since COVID. Young people have been facing a lot more mental health and emotional challenges. We sadly have a high level of exploitation and grooming going on in our communities. As a result, we have one of the highest level of what they call county lines and internal county lines going across. And we work with many young people, both young men and young women, who have been victims of this and the trauma and the impact that it causes on families. So externally there are lots of challenges, but within that there are also huge, amazing communities with great resilience and diversity, and lots of families and young people that we work with who are setting up their own businesses, their own enterprises, and it's how those initiatives are supported and allowed to flourish and grow.
Sure, sure. So, I mean, from what I'm hearing, I mean, it's the East End of London that, you know, which you have noticed certain things going on. As part of some of the issues, how do you support the local people when they actually get scapegoated and called grass by other residents?
Yeah, it's a really profound point you raise, and it's not only here; it's in other parts of the world also. From our exploration, you know, over in Northern Ireland, etc. You know, when communities are seen as crossing the other side or stepping out of peer groups to be more cosmopolitan with other communities, you can be seen as a snitch, grass, a sellout. It's why we set up Streets of Growth. We set up Streets of Growth as a charity in 2001 for the very reason that the points that you raised, Sabia. We wanted to find a way for our neighbours who want to get involved in positive change can support each other as communities, rather than that relying on outside professionals having to come in to fix us. More police, more outside youth workers, etc. We wanted neighbours to be able to do their own outreach, be able to go out to a group of young people and say, hey, listen, we don't do that round here, it's harmful. And, you know, and to be able to challenge antisocial behaviour. So in setting up Streets of Growth, it was simply to reduce harm, to transform lifestyles. And what we do, we call ourselves intervention coaches, not youth workers.
Sure.
And as intervention coaches, we are members of the community that are not afraid to intervene in a law-abiding way to disrupt harm and support young people to not be involved in gangs, drugs, criminality, racism, and that's what the organisation does. And it's not only about focusing on intervention, it's, as Diane's saying, it's also about helping these youngsters who are being marginalised tap into the regeneration opportunities that are going on, such as the Olympic Stadium and all the Stratford City that's going on. There's young people in Tower Hamlets that still haven't even been over there because they're scared to go over into another postcode. Who's addressing that? So that's what Streets of Growth does. It helps young people see a bigger world.
What it sounds like is that there's a vital importance it being a community, more community involving, and the fact that it's a community-led involvement. Can you tell us some things that some of the sacrifices, for example, are needed to achieve such changes, which Darren has mentioned, you know, that we are actually seeing or not seeing?
I think, I mean, within Streets of Growth and the charity that Darren and I have co-founded with other local people who, so there's Darren and I sitting here, there's a whole team of us who all are local people who have sacrificed their time to give. You can't do this work without, you know, so if a young person calls you up at 10 o'clock at night, that's the difference between perhaps them going out and doing something that is going to be harmful to them and themselves, or having a conversation with you. So it's picking up that phone. And I know all of us have sometimes made decisions where perhaps instead of going home to have dinner with your family, you've stayed out and supported a group on the street, or I mean, there are so many stories I can tell where I know people, we've been at hospital bedsides, we've stayed in A&E because we're worried that another group's going to come up and cause more problems.
Is that because, that you've been called, or the fact that you're trusted, that they actually connect or contact you?
So it's a mixture of things. So it's young people who have called you, families, parents who call you, or sometimes it's a gut instinct and you think something's not right. So it could be with a group and you think, I'm going to stay out longer on the street tonight because I'm worried about a particular group, or young people that we couldn't get hold of because they were supposed to come to a session, then haven't turned up, and you're like, where are they? Something's wrong, and you will go out to try and find them, and you know, and sometimes we find young women in you know, for instance, in really harmful situations, and it's because we've gone out to search and prevent any sort of thing. So yes, it does take a sacrifice, but you get rewards back from it as well.
What's actually coming to my mind, Darren, is residents out there. Could they say, well, it's not my problem?
Yeah, it's a really...
How do you go about that?
Yeah, I mean, coming from the neighbourhood myself, I've heard neighbours and residents alike say, you know, not my problem because they're not my kids. And, you know, I've grown up with the understanding that a community's children are the community's children, whoever they are, white, black, other. And when you start getting neighbours saying, well, they're not my kids, so it's not my problem, you then get what we call the closed door syndrome.
Right.
And then they're scared to challenge the kids because they've got no relationships with them. So if you've got no relationships with these young people, how do you challenge them? So then the cycle gets worse. So it's like, they're not my kids, I don't have a relationship, so I can't challenge them, I'm relying on someone to fix it, youth workers and police. So we get caught in stuck communities. You get this syndrome where they say more police, more youth workers.
Right.
We sit here saying, we're telling you now from 30 years of experience in this work, they are part of the solution. But at the end of the day, if you really want to solve antisocial behaviour, specifically with young people, it has to come from the community, because that's what sustains it. You cannot pay for more police and more youth workers to solve it, because once that funding stops, so does their intervention.
Yeah.
So our approach at Streets of Growth is to try and coach and support communities to be able to build relationships with each other, that when there are problems, they are in a better position to solve them. And what we call restorative communities.
Yeah, yeah. I suppose it doesn't become your problem unless it's one of your child, your son, your daughter, your niece. You know, and then it's like, well, now you know it is everyone's problem. I mean, it makes sense then.
We've had situations where we've had parents in Tower Hamlets who have said, no, don't get involved with the police, don't call the police, right? Shh, keep stum. 2 years goes by, their daughter or son gets injured or worse. First thing they do, please can someone come forward and tell the police? There's this street code is a broken law to itself. There are people that say that they're streetwise and they adhere to the code of the street, and it's like, you don't grass, you don't talk to the police.
Right.
And they encourage that, often because they're doing their own criminality.
Yeah. Or they're thinking it's going to not be any harmful.
Yeah, exactly. And then something happens to their family and they're saying, please could someone tell the police? Now, when you've got that in discrepance, it's no wonder these young people growing up don't know where to align. Do I work with the police? Do I not tell the police?
Yes.
So you know, adults are playing their part in the conflict between, do you tell the police, don't you tell the police? And you know, we can't do our work safely without working with the police. And there are good and bad youth workers, there are good and bad school teachers, there are good and bad police officers. What we have to find are the good ones and work with them in partnership to say, look, in giving you you need to work with safely. We're not police officers, so understand that we're members of the community doing intervention work, and it's a fine line, and it doesn't always work out completely clear, but we work really hard to have a relationship with the police where they understand that we need support in another way, in terms of we're not police officers. And young people, it's interesting, we had a situation recently where a gang had robbed a group of young people of their phones. Now that group could have easily have become a gang to do a retaliation attack, but they said, no, we're going to go to Streets of Growth, we're going to do a campaign about not having theft. And they worked with us and the police, and we worked with the families to try and get those phones back. and make sure that the people that were involved were appropriately dealt with by the law. That's the way forward.
I mean, how young does it start with, having certain situations or, the dangers? How young of a youth do you come across or you're aware of?
Well, not wanting to be scary, but we've done work in primary schools. So as young as sort of year 3, year 4.
Okay.
Yes. So we were doing work around sort of
Year
online.
3, year 4, we're talking about
5, 6, 7. So I mean, we've had a young boy as young as 8 who we were working with because he took a knife to school. We've worked with young people around cyber safety, which is a huge thing, I think. Online safety, and lots of parents across all cultures and community, I think, is a huge issue for parents, because young people are so much more tech savvy, even and it was really alarming to hear some of the language that the young people were coming out, particularly with the gaming that goes on now and the games that young people can access. You've got very young...
horrendous, if you tell me, to be honest. I mean, I even know myself that if it's an 18 rated, a 12-year-old is playing it, and just the amount of bloodshed in the games these days, I mean, which, I could never figure out. But when you see, you think, there's a whole lot of killing going on here. There's a reason for the age rating, Coming back to the school's age group, surely at that point there should be a good partnership between parents, schools and other external bodies to raise the concern and, hopefully have something in place to support.
Yeah.
I think that there I wouldn't say it's always uniformed across all the schools, and I'm not trying to say there are a lot schools doing great work, but that was work that we were actually doing with the local authority, and we were going in, and it was surprising how many schools didn't have online safety training, but also because the teachers are trying to do so much, and it's like it's a whole other curriculum.
I would have thought most schools had all online facilities.
Not so
now,
much perhaps in primary schools, and it's because of conversations that were coming up from the children themselves that the teachers were so alarmed by what they were hearing that they brought that in. But actually running workshops with the parents as well, and most parents we did a mixture both in English and Sylheti and other languages to support parents across different cultures so that they could really start to understand what was going on and what services they can offer, or when they're looking at a phone, what to look for, and how you just simple things like that.
What kind of background people are we dealing with here? I know we're in the East End, locality, and the Bangladeshi community are a majority, but are there other background ethnic minority groups?
Well, yeah, there are. I mean, it's interesting how you mentioned about Bangladeshi being a minority. I mean, if you look at the statistics in Tower Hamlets, it's changing rapidly.
Okay.
I mean, you look at 30-odd% Bangladeshi, 30-odd% white. A lot of people would assume that it's 30% white, 67% Bangladeshi.
Right.
And one of the biggest black communities in Tower Hamlets is Somalian. No one even... Somalian are often the forgotten community, and Somalian leaders in Tower Hamlets themselves are saying, hang on a minute here, we're the biggest black community, but in terms of a black community, we're often the most unrepresented. So they're working hard to try and, be part of this multicultural mix of regeneration.
To be recognised.
Yeah, most definitely. And we're partnering with 2 young Somalian leaders at the moment, where they've recently visited our centre to say, hey, look, this is what we are. We're, I mean... It's important to know those different stats, but at the same time, it's just important to recognise that we're all human, and that's what Streets of Growth are trying to do. We'll work with any ethnicity, any religion, any non-religion.
What kind of regeneration opportunities are out there?
Yeah, so
for these people?
what we're looking at. So in terms, I mean, it was interesting you mentioned about age groups. We recognise that this issue around community building and how you try and make it much more a cohesive system of intergeneration. we recognised that we couldn't focus on it all. We originally, when we first started doing this work, we started working with 8 to 16-year-olds. We then realised that there was a forgotten generation of 15 to 25-year-olds. So over the last 10 years, we've specifically focused on 15 to 25-year-olds and partnered with organisations that specialise with working with under 10s, etc. That's what we do. And what we're doing is we are at this, the zeitgeist for this moment, is we are trying to tap into the different cohorts of young people who are living across these estates in Tower Hamlets, and we are supporting them into the creative industries, trying to get them into the fields of acting, you know, whatever it is. Creative mediums, which they often say that they are being alienated, whether it's their ethnicity, etc. They don't feel that they're getting a fair chance.
Okay.
Even white kids from poorer families who are saying that I don't have people in my family that understand the culture of the creative arts, therefore I don't know how to get a leg in. I can't.
Right.
I've got no one to talk to.
Yeah.
So
how are you finding out that this is what the young people want?
Through intensive outreach. So we do two things that we specialise in. We go outreaching to try and find young people where they're at. We'll speak to police, mums, dads, where they're hanging out. We build a relationship. From there, we see what street work we need to do to intervene to see whether they're involved in any harm and they need some gang intervention work. And then how we progress them into programs. The programs are where we tap into people offering the opportunities, whether it's retail in Stratford City, and talking to people who are running the retail there around careers and jobs. I mean, like for instance, Christmas time, people just want jobs. They're not a career in retail, they just want some money. So we do a lot of work around helping young people get jobs in the retail industry whilst they're working to try and get into the creative arts industry. So we work with construction workers. We did a lot of work over in Canary Wharf around getting young people, female and male, into the construction industry, who otherwise wouldn't have had the right support to do that because they weren't course or college ready. So we do a lot of pre-work to get them ready to go into a college or into a job. That's where we are specialising.
And Diane, how would you say that the youth, you know, of various age group and generation, you know, would find someone like yourselves or anyone else approachable to say, oh yes, you know, I can relate, or I can go and open up to this person? You know, how would you say that, you know, you would have to be for them to find you approachable?
Well, I mean, I think obviously as you get older, it's always as easy.
I'm hiding my age in this scarf, actually.
I think, I mean, even now, I think when young people come into the building, it's just that young people suss you out. They know if you're going to listen. They know that you're either there to, you know, be there for them. I think it's how you are as a person, that you treat someone else as a human being. You're not judging. You're not doing
That's a big
this.
one, not judging.
Yeah.
You know, and listening them out from beginning to end.
That's it. Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
And I think that's absolutely the key. I mean, obviously, in Streets of Growth, we come in all different age ranges, and obviously a lot of the team are young or in, you know, earlier, and we're about to start taking young people themselves who've come up through the programs and engaging them to become outreach workers with us. But at the end of the day, it's been about non-judgmental and using this and listening.
Listening more.
You find ways to break the ice. And, you know, I get now that when I was doing intervention work 25 years ago, I was 27 years of age. So these young people were relating to me when they're in their 20s. Now I'm 54. It's like, who's this older guy? So we have to be...
This is public, by the way, your age.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I'm fine with that. But it is. It's like, you know, you have to... I have to remember that, because I started like a young mind, I have to remember when I go out, I'm older than some of their fathers. So, but our younger lot, as Diane says, who are in their mid-30s or early 20s, who are closer to the street, when they bring these young people in, when they come in and speak to some of the older generation like us, they know, like for instance, a young person might come in, who's a Bangladeshi boy might come in, or a girl, and I'll go, Tuma nam kita.
Wow, I'm impressed.
I'm Darren, I'm a Taki Torwin Street. And they go, whoa, you're the first white guy I've ever...
So you knew exactly how to catch their attention.
Because
they're not expecting...
You're trying to surprise them. They're so used to coming in thinking, well, this guy's trying to get me on a programme. And I'm just saying, hey, listen, I'm Darren. I used to live in Torwin Street and I've just learnt a little bit of Saleh. And they go, well, if you're prepared to do that, you must be open to my type of people. And that's how you start to break. I might do some card tricks or close-up magic. Yeah. Anything that breaks the ice. And then you start saying to them, yeah, I remember working in the construction industry down by Bow Road. My nan used to live in Mile End. And they start to... Versus going to a practitioner who may not be from round here, and they go like, okay, what's your name? Because I have to do a form. They go, we're from Bow Road. Where's that? And that young person straight away goes, you can't support me out there because you don't even know where Jolly's house is. So it's important for whether you're from the area or not
be familiar
to know where these young people are at. And I think that because we're a mix of people that are from the area and not from the area, these young people relate that we are a dynamic community to be engaged with. You know, the trick to the work we do, whether we're working with gangs or trying to help young people who are involved in unemployment to start working, is to show them that we're worthy of their commitment and that we're worthy of theirs. And that sharing of a relationship where we see them through it. I mean, don't forget, Sabia, when we engage a young person at street level, we may be working with them intensely for 3 years.
Right.
To move them out of a gang, into education, onto a job and maintain those changes.
Sure.
Whereas other organisations might run a 3-month programme and then say, goodbye, next. And then on the next group.
Yeah.
If we're going to change these young people's lives in Tower Hamlets, we have to see them through those challenges. Yeah. And I think that's what's... You know, if there's anything I could say to your viewers today, it would be we have to support young people in their social skills, in their environment, in their educational skills and their career.
Right.
And they're the 4 prongs. If we miss any one of those prongs, young people are susceptible to drugs, criminality, gangs, exploitation. And that's from the evidence that we've built in our system of when young people end up falling by the wayside.
Definitely.
And it's one or all of those 4 things that are missing.
Right, okay. We are coming almost to the end of our show, but there seems to be a lot more that, you know, can be said about this. I mean, we've only touched base on, you know, the things that are happening and what's going on and how we all can play a part in the support and make an impact. Just finally, if you would like to say a few things just to summarise today and how we can go forward.
Okay, I think it's what Darren said. It's about neighbours and communities coming together because things will only change and change will only sustain if neighbours and people work together.
Definitely. Any last few things?
It's and what I would add to what Diane's saying is, and organisations that specialise in community development, listening and learning more from communities rather than going in to fix them. You know, like we have these programmes and going out saying, will you come on them? It's like, learn from the people that are living in these environments.
Definitely.
That's crucial.
Definitely. Thank you so much for coming and giving your valuable contributions.
Thank you for having
it's
us.
A very, very significant situation. I'm not even going to say it's an issue because it's situations. That's how, you know, it's coming across. So once again, thank you, Diana, and thank you, Darren.
Thank you, Sabia.
And I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. So there we have it, viewers. We hope to be filled with hope. And we hope to start a change, not only from our own thoughts, but also away from the noise of media headlines out there, and start looking for ways where we can combine, connect, and come together to help support not only issues like this, but many other significant situations we can find ourselves in. one saying I came across I'd like to share with everyone is accept that your convictions don't give you the power to be the loudest voice in the room. So let's start with preservation of respect and giving dignity. And stay blessed. This is SABIA KHATUN for VodTalk.